Well, war has just been declared over all Canadian citizens by their leader, Justin Trudeau, who took it upon himself to declare himself king and dictator over the land by igniting national emergency powers over the convoy. This is insanity. And by the way, he took his marching orders from the White House. Take a look at this article, and the first one here is on WashingtonTimes.com. Biden administration urges Canada to use federal powers to end their trucker blockade. It goes on. The Biden administration urged Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government Thursday to use its federal powers to end the truck blockade by Canadians protesting the country's COVID-19 restrictions, as the bumper-to-bumper demonstrations forced auto plants on both sides of the border to shut down or scale back productions. So evidently, just days after the Biden administration told Justin Trudeau what to do, Justin Trudeau marched like a little puppy dog and did exactly that. Take a listen to what he had to say.
After discussing with Cabinet and caucus, after consultation with premiers from all provinces and territories, after speaking with opposition leaders, the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
With that one statement, Justin Trudeau gave himself ultimate overlord authority, declaring him king over the entire land. And here's some of the stuff that he can do with this declaration. And I want to show you. Take a look at this Business Insider article. Trudeau declares national emergency over Canadian trucker protests, basically all of Canada, allowing the government to override human civil rights. That's what he gets the authority to do. And here's what it says. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declared a national emergency over ongoing trucker protests, allowing the nation's government to temporarily override civil rights. The scope of these measures will be time limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address, he said on Monday. The far-reaching emergency acts gives the Canadian government the ability to prohibit public assembly, to restrict travel, and to force businesses such as the towing companies who were refusing to help the Canadian Prime Minister to act with compensation. So because some of these tow companies and some of the agencies weren't helping Trudeau in his tyrannical moves, now they're going to force him with this act. And it goes on. Trudeau's use of emergency acts essentially gives the government a lot more power that you just can't get away with in a democracy like Canada, Solomon said. The federal government now has powers to do things such as cancel insurance for any of these trucks if they don't go home, cancel their license plates, cancels their registration, and even freeze their corporate accounts. They have a right to seize their money, freeze their accounts, do basically whatever they want. This is, wouldn't that be martial law? Oh, but don't worry. They want you to know it's just temporary. And he has all intent, and he is already freezing those accounts. Take a look at this article here. Trudeau vows to freeze anti-mandate protest bank accounts. And this is on BBC News. By the way, take a listen to what his deputy prime minister and minister of finance had to say and how she just rubbed it in everybody's face. Take a listen.
This is about following the money. This is about stopping the financing of these illegal blockades. We are today serving notice. If your truck is being used in these illegal blockades, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended.
Not maybe, not, well, think about it. It will be suspended. We will suspend your insurance. We will freeze your bank accounts. And listen, they're not supposed to have this kind of emergency power unless there's an actual emergency. A bunch of people protesting mandates, putting bouncy houses in a street and talking about freedom hardly has anything to do with the emergency powers that they're now dictating. But never fear, this little finance deputy prime minister and minister of finance goes on to explain how they are about to, well, regulate all crowdfunding and cryptocurrency. In other words, they can do whatever they want, however they want with the cryptocurrency, with the funds in your bank. It doesn't matter. Trudeau has absolute authority over all that money. Take a listen.
We are announcing the following immediate actions. First, we are broadening the scope of Canada's anti-money laundering and terrorist financing rules so that they cover crowdfunding platforms and the payment service providers they use. These changes cover all forms of transactions, including digital assets, such as cryptocurrencies. The illegal blockades have highlighted the fact that crowdfunding platforms and some of the payment service providers they use are not fully captured under the Proceeds of Crime and Terrorist Financing Act. Our banks and financial institutions are already obligated to report to the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre of Canada.
Notice that little grin of hers. She is so happy about this announcement that they get to regulate any and all finance. Doesn't matter what it is. Justin Trudeau can take control and do what he wants with it. Under this dictatorial power, I am king, I am God, I am leader and chief over my country. These powers, they had no right to declare powers, in my opinion, when there wasn't a national emergency or an emergency to the level that is outlined in what they're utilizing. In fact, Justin Trudeau, in the very beginning of this report, I played the clip where he was saying, "Oh, I talked to people and got advice from, all my primers and people, all within my cabinet," and he didn't really state the fact that many of them actually disagree. Take a look here. The first one here is Scott. He's the primer of Saskatchewan. And here's what he says: Saskatchewan, and does not support the Trudeau government invoking the Emergency Act. The primer here does not support it, of Saskatchewan. If the federal government does proceed with this measure, I would hope it would only be to invoke in provinces that request it as the legislation allows. He's saying, I don't want it in my province. He's not the only one. Here's another one. Emergencies Act not necessary in Manitoba, says the Prime Minister Heather Stephenson. It says the Emergency Act is very, very serious. Indeed it is, and needs to be considered very seriously before enacting something like that, she said, adding she does not want to escalate the situation by invoking this act. I think it's important that Manitobans and Canadians know and understand that it's not necessary, and we need to think very carefully and clearly before going in that direction. And not just those two areas. We also have there, and this is on cbc.ca, Francis Legault says Trudeau's invoking of emergency acts is not necessary in Quebec. So here we have three separate areas who are avidly against it. And in Quebec, he says this: I think that I was very clear with the Prime Minister that the Federal Emergencies Act should not and must not apply in Quebec. We don't have any problems here so far, he says. I'm not applying this in my area. So even many of his people, primers there, are against this act, this unruly act, where he's declared himself dictator and chief. On the marching orders of Joe Biden, of course. Think it won't happen here in the U.S.? It already is. Joe Biden has already done similar things here in the U.S. And if he gave the marching orders and told Canada what to do, what's to stop him from doing it here? He already did it with the J6 committee. Think about what they're doing there. But listen to what Tucker Carlson had to say about the entire thing.
So let's be clear. This is a defining moment in the history of Canada, in the history of the English-speaking West. The Emergencies Act is martial law. It has never been invoked in the history of that country. Now, by law, the Emergencies Act is allowed only in emergencies, in, quote, urgent and critical situations that seriously endanger the lives, health, or safety of Canadians. What's happening now does not qualify. What's happening in Canada now is not an emergency.
So Tucker Carlson agrees with me. He calls it martial law and says, hey, this isn't deemable for an emergency, and it absolutely is not. By the way, you need to get to Restrictive Republic because I've got inside information that we've been doing on the trucker convoy. I've got interviews there that you're going to want to check out on information you're not getting on the mainstream media. And right now, you can get it for free for an entire 2-month period on the monthly subscription. Use the coupon code 2, the number 2, and the word free, and you can get it free, and you can cancel whenever you want. But get that information, find out what's really going on, because they're trying to silence us, they're trying to shut us down, and they're doing everything in their power to do that. Please get to Restrictive Republic. I'm going to be putting some bombshell information there as well, and I have been putting some pretty huge stuff on COVID that you're going to want to check out on there anyway. But with that, the bottom line here is our friends over in Canada are under a dictatorship. They're not a free country. It's not a republic. It's not a democracy. It isn't anything close to that. When you can declare those powers and do what you want to do, regardless of what the rules say, then you have crossed the line. And this is what Justin Trudeau has done multiple times with what he's calling the truckers insurrectionists and calling them racists and bigots, things that aren't even true. Things that aren't even true. These are workers who are out there, just the average working person who wants to have a life and a job and not be told that you can't work if you don't fill in the blank. This is the same stuff we see in communist countries. And that is where Canada is headed. And mark my words, that's where the U.S. is headed unless we start getting the right people elected in and start standing up against some of this stuff. It's a crazy, crazy world that we are beginning to live in. And I feel sorry for our friends over in Canada. I am praying for all of you daily on what's going on. My heart, my prayers, everything is with you and your families. And by the way, when they enact such powers like this, they always tell you it's temporary. Then what happens? Oh, we need to open it and use it again here. Oh, it's just going to, just in case we need it. They're never temporary, people. Anyhow, and I know you guys know that. It's for the liberals out there listening. Anyhow, I love all of you. Please don't forget to check out my partner at ketowithlisa.com. If you guys are looking for a diet, we're already in a couple months here to the new year, then check out ketowithlisa.com. It does amazing stuff because it works without all the hassle of the keto diet. Of course, you still want to diet, exercise, do those things, but it really gives you that jump start. And right now you can get it for up to 51% off. Go to ketowithlisa.com. Take advantage of this. Lose that weight that you've been wanting to lose. And the other thing is they have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not happy, you get your money back. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. I love all of you. I'm Lisa Haven signing out.